morning, Toastmasters, and welcome to our brand new District 123 and our very first inaugural exciting event. We're forging fast forward into the future with some phenomenal firsts. Please let me read our mission statement for the district. We build new clubs and support all clubs in achieving excellence. Please let me introduce our inaugural district trio, our district director, Chris Nelson, DTM. Our program quality director, Iona Rodriguez, DTM. Our club growth director, Leslie Benfield, DTM. What a crowd. Wow, that's fantastic. Just because you got up so early this beautiful Saturday morning, not to disappoint, we're going to make it worth your while. We're in for a treat with a past international president kicking us off with a phenomenal workshop. A little bit of housekeeping rules, please. Keep yourselves on mute, although keep your video on. We certainly want to see your pretty faces. This will be an interactive workshop. Please put your questions into chat and we will monitor them for you. And when time opens up for you to speak, please use your hand gesture feature to raise your hand and we will unmute you in turn. Now, what you've been waiting for. To fill us in on all the detail, please let's give a warm welcome to our inaugural program quality director, Iona Rodriguez.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Alfred, can we please do a video check before we begin?
We cannot because my laptop is not booting up. So I'm doing this off my desktop, which does not have videos. So I'll still be able to share my screen. Those of you that were here early got to see my face. So you're probably glad you're not going to see me the rest of the time, but I apologize. I won't be able to be on screen with you, but I will. I'm in Zoom. I see you and I just won't be able to project my image. I apologize for that.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Alfred. Please welcome our speaker, Alfred Herzing, DTM, past international president, 2001-2002. Our speaker today knows what he's talking about when it comes to building new clubs. He's an experienced club builder. He builds clubs in one launch meeting. He even launched 2 clubs, one in 2 different cities on a business trip to India, where he was the one-person launch team. Born in Kitchener, Ontario, as a child, his family moved to California in search of new opportunities. Alfred is a Toastmaster since the last century, has led District 52 in downtown Los Angeles, the San Fernando Valley, to distinguished status. But Alfred is more proud of the fact that this was the first of 4 years in a row that the district was distinguished. Alfred has served 7 years on the board of directors of Toastmasters International. The highlight of this time was when Alfred served all Toastmasters worldwide as our international president. He remains active as a member in 4 and currently is an officer in 3 of them. Alfred is also active as a mentor for the top 3 officers around the world. Please join me in welcoming distinguished Toastmaster, my friend, my mentor, past international president, Alfred Herzing. Alfred.
Thank you so much. Good morning, District 123. And I can officially say a little belated, but happy birth. It's not even birthday. I mean, it's the actual birth. So congratulations. I'm excited to be here with you. I do want this to be an interactive session. And so I need somebody else to monitor the chat because I'll be busy doing the presentation, but don't think that chat is the only way to talk with me. In fact, I'd prefer just go ahead and say, unmute and interrupt me. Hey, Alfred, I have a quick question, because it's so important that we take this step by step and that you get the basics. We're going to spend a lot of time on the basics and fundamentals. And before I start, I want to get a kind of view of the audience. I know that this has been opened up to the entire district, which is wonderful. And I'm wondering if you could just wave your hand. I'm looking at the whole group here. Those of you in the audience that are not current members of the district team, but just members of the district that are interested in learning about building new clubs. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the district leaders that are here. Part of this presentation is going to be aimed directly at the district leaders. So those of you that aren't district leaders, that's okay. It's important that you know what they're accountable for and doing. But when we get into the nuts and bolts of building new clubs, and I'm going to take you through all of the steps, you will find it very, very interesting and interactive. Okay? Sound fair? All right, and I'm going to go ahead and do this, and here we go again. I'm sharing, and I'm going to start the slide show. And let me ask you, are you seeing my first slide, everybody? Beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, I want this to be interactive, so unmute, ask questions as we go along. And I'm very happy to answer the questions. Those of you that choose to chat, again, somebody is monitoring that chat and will let me know. First of all, we're going to be talking about missions and goals. I was so happy you started with the mission of the district. By the time I'm finished, you're probably going to have that memorized. Those of you that are area directors, we're going to spend some time talking about your focus. And then, of course, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of how to actually build a new club. Sound good? All right. I see some nod head said. Well, let's start with a very basic question. It's a beautiful July morning. The weather is nice. No snows anywhere. And what are you guys doing? You're inside attending a Zoom meeting, yet another Zoom meeting. You know, why? Why are you doing this? Well, I think the mission of Toastmasters International gives us a very good reason why. We empower individuals to become more effective communicators and leaders. Wouldn't you agree that's a pretty powerful reason? Thank you. The district mission was already mentioned. We build new clubs and support all clubs in achieving excellence. Now that word excellence, to me, there's one word in Toastmasters that defines excellence. Do you know what that word is? Go ahead and unmute. This is the audience participation portion. What's one word that defines excellence in the Toastmasters world?
Excellence.
Well, that's the same word.
Integrity.
Okay.
Distinguished.
Distinguished. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Distinguished is how I measure success in Toastmasters and excellence. Now, that doesn't mean if a club is not distinguished, we should disband that club and send all its members to other clubs. No, 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 no. But we're just saying if a club's not distinguished, it means in one way or another, they haven't properly served their members. Okay. So when I see we build new clubs and support all clubs in achieving excellence, I see it as supporting all clubs in achieving distinguished, or better, of course. Presidents is great. Select is great. Distinguished is also great. All right. Let me ask you a quick question because, you know, in speech contests, a lot of people get very involved and wrapped up in speech contests. You know, let's go back to this. Do you see speech contest anywhere in the mission of the district? No, it's not there. It's not there. And if you have a member of your club that goes on to win the world championship of public speaking, does that make your club distinguished?
No.
No. Thank you for unmuting. I appreciate it. Does that make your district distinguished? If you have a member of your district go to win the world championship?
Nope.
No.
No.
No, it doesn't. And so it's not a critical success factor. Would it be okay if I shared my story when I was an area governor? That was the title back in the old days.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. When I was an area governor, I'll say director because that's the current term. When we had district meetings, all the district leaders talked about was speech contests. So I thought, okay, this is our focus as a district. This is my first time being exposed above the club level. And so when my area council met, we met to plan our speech contest. Back then we had a fall contest and a spring conference. And ladies and gentlemen, we had an amazing fall contest. We made $60 profit from, no, sorry, $400 profit from our opportunity drawing. We had 60 people in attendance. By every measure, it was a successful event. And then my area council didn't meet till it was time to plan the spring contest. And again, we had another amazing event. And at the end of the district year, our district was not distinguished. And a light bulb came on to me. I said, wait a minute. We spent all this time and energy and focus on something that didn't even matter, that didn't even count. And that's where I learned the lesson that speech contests are nice. They belong in our program, absolutely, but they're not the center of our world. They're not where we focus, okay? So I'm going to ask you guys a trick question, especially the district leaders. And let's not talk about the current Toastmasters year. I mean, we're only 10 days in, but those of you that have studied the dashboard, I don't want you to go out and look at the dashboard, but just roughly, if you know your numbers from last year, roughly how many new members joined your area or division last Toastmasters year? And again, I'm letting you know this is a trick question. So unmute, I'd like to hear your answers. Those of you who have done this with me, Iona, don't jump in.
My answer is 0 since we're a new district.
Okay, but I'm talking about the clubs. I mean, the area from last year. That's a good point, though. Absolutely, you're right.
My
But-
answer would have been all of us because we're a new district.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
My answer is 0 because they join clubs. They don't join areas or divisions.
That's exactly the right answer. Who was that said that?
That was
Great.
correct.
Karim.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate it. I don't see everybody on my screen here when I'm sharing. Thank you. That's exactly right. Then that was a good point about you being a new district. So good catch on that. But the reality is members join clubs. They don't join an area. They don't join a division. They don't join a district. Members join clubs, right?
Right.
So if we look at the process, I'll try to speak Canadian here a little bit. If we look at the process of a guest becoming a member, they have to first find out about a meeting. These days, they need to get the link. They need to attend a meeting. They have to see a quality meeting, something they said, hey, yeah, I'd like to be a part of this. Somebody has to ask that key question. Would you like to join? And then you have to send them an application and then go through the paperwork, fill it out, collect the dues, and have them voted in and send the application to World Headquarters. Wouldn't you agree that's pretty much the process?
Yes.
Now, unless the district leader is a member of that club, what percentage of influence did the district have in that entire process?
None.
None.
I don't like to say none
I would
because
say minimal. Minimal.
it is minimal. I don't want to say none because the district, Iona, listen up. The district might have done a workshop on moments of truth and how to have quality meetings. And of course, in training the club officers, they would have been taught the VP membership. Make sure you ask the guest to join. So there's an influence there, but they're not directly involved in it, right? So it's the club. It's the club, not the district. And the same thing applies to membership retention. Members are leaving clubs. They're not leaving the district, right? Can the district stop a member from leaving a club?
Nope.
No. I mean, the club can do something. They can say, hey, what's going on? Do you need a mentor? But we've done many surveys over the years, and yes, our turnover is atrocious in Toastmasters. The average member stays in 18 months and gives 6 speeches, right? And then they're off. And usually the reason people leave is not because they had any negative experience. 95% of former Toastmasters have a very positive impression of the organization. They leave because they've had a change in their life situation. They have a change in priorities. In some cases, and this is sad because they didn't set proper goals, they joined to overcome that fear of public speaking. And by speech 6, they're starting to feel comfortable and they say, thank you very much. I'm ready to move on. Former international president, past international president Helen Blanchard had this saying. She said, if you get out of Toastmasters all that you can get out of Toastmasters, you'll never get out of Toastmasters. So there is so much there. So we just have to get those guests there. So going back to the mission of the district, we build new clubs and support all clubs in achieving excellence. We have a limited amount of time, district leaders, to spend in our Toastmasters activities. Our family comes first, our work comes first, and then Toastmasters. And so we need to make sure we're properly focusing our time and energy on the things that we can directly control, not that the things that we're only influencing. And the biggest mistake area directors make, in my opinion, is when they take the monkey on the back, that they think it's their job to make their clubs distinguished. Whose job is it to make the clubs distinguished?
President?
Club members.
Yeah, it's the club, right?
Everybody.
No, it's everybody in the club. It's everybody in the club. It's not everybody in the district. It's everybody in the club. It's their responsibility. And yes, the district is there to support them, but if the club doesn't want it, then there's nothing the district can do. So you can't force them to do it. You can mentor them, you can encourage them, but at the end of the day, the club has to own it. All right? Do you guys get this?
Yep.
It's so important that you district leaders understand why this is the way it is, because I don't want you spending time where you're only an influencer. There's only one thing the district directly controls. Do you know what that is?
Support.
No, you can't directly control supporting. Look at the mission of the district.
We can support the clubs through training and education.
But again, the goal is to make them distinguished. We've already made it clear. We cannot make the clubs distinguished, right?
We can offer them the tools and resources.
Okay.
Can encourage.
The only thing we can directly control, guys, is building new clubs. Okay. I think the board got this right. I've been very critical of the board at some of the moves they've made over the years, and I won't go over the most recent ones. But when they rewrote the mission of the district a few years ago, they got it right. They put first things first. The newspaper headlines are always the biggest story, right? The most important thing is first, and they got it right. We build new clubs. All right. That is our focus as a district. And if you don't understand that that's where we have to spend our time and energy, it should be an 80-20 proposition as a district team. We don't turn our back on the existing clubs. We're absolutely there to support them, but our primary effort is building new clubs. Now, you guys all know that if you're in a club, you must continually be bringing in new members because members leave through natural attrition, right? Right?
Right.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
So if you're not building, you're dying, right?
All right.
Yeah. Well, the same thing applies to the district, okay? The district must continue to bring in new clubs because clubs will die of their own situation, having nothing to do with the district. I originally joined a corporate club in downtown Los Angeles. In fact, I'm going to be seeing that building today. It's now LA Studios. And if you've seen like the Rookie, the headquarters for the police station is my former building where I used to work in downtown Los Angeles. If you saw Austin Powers, Virgicon World Headquarters, that's the building I used to work at. It's in a lot of movies, including the new Jason Statham movie. So anyway, when we closed down that corporate headquarters and the company moved me to Orange County, that district lost 2 clubs, and there's not a thing the district could do about it. So what could they do? They could build new clubs to replace it. I am entering another district that was recently split. Not like yours, they took 2 parts and just split it. Theirs is unusual in that you involved 2 districts to split, which is fantastic. But that district, since it split, they have had 3 years in a row of loss of clubs. And I have already warned the district director, because when I was on the board, we did this. If the district gets too small, we will recombine them back again. And so the future of the district is in your hands, guys. This is a new district, and it's exciting and fresh. And Chris and Iona and Leslie, you have a great leadership team there, and I have great confidence in them. And working together, we can do this. Dinesh, do you have a question?
Yes, I do, Alfred. Thank you for the wonderful presentation that you have it. And I agree that the role of the district is to build new clubs as clubs will die. I fully agree with that.
Thank you.
My 2 cents onto it too. And my 2 cents is, as a club, if we follow the policy of what I call it as care and human touch, the clubs will never die. My home club that we have it, okay, in fact, in the last year and a half, in spite of the Zoom meetings or so, the membership in the club is increasing every month for that matter.
Wonderful.
Because the VP of the membership has the philosophy of human touch. So he calls up the past members, the current ones, and the prospective. So the human touch that he gives it to the membership has left, and working collaboratively with the VP of the publicity, they work on embarking raising the profile of the club, which has resulted in the growth of the membership in that club. So just my 2 cents onto it too. So
no,
if the club
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for that point. And that ties exactly with what I've said, because what you talked about, that human touch, that's coming from the club, and it has to be coming from the club because it can't be from the district. Now, the district, if you're an area director, then you could, share this philosophy with the clubs and encourage them to do it. And that's how they can retain and build their membership. That's fantastic. And again,
sorry, I'm just jumping ahead. As Iona said, the role of the district is to provide that necessary training and expertise to the membership or the VP of the membership of the club, because the people at the executive level of the club, they may be enthusiastic, okay, but they may not have the necessary knowledge and experience of running the portfolio that they have it. So our role as a district is to support them, encourage them, develop them, so that they make the club succeed, and if the club succeeds, the district succeeds.
Well,
that's my thing.
Okay.
Working at the ground level basis, let work at the ground level and let the club succeed so that the district can succeed.
Right. No, I agree. I agree with you. And again, we provide that training, but like you said, at the end, it's the club that has to do it. And I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on your last statement, because if all the clubs are successful, that does not make the district successful. In one of the districts I'm involved in, we had a district director come in a few years ago that said, my goal is to make all the clubs in the district presidents distinguished. And if we do that, we'll be a Smedley distinguished district. That is not true, because you as a district also have to build, okay? You have to build new clubs. So even if 100% of your clubs are distinguished or better, that's still not achieving the mission of the district. We build new clubs, all right? That is the first and foremost thing. All right, let's move on. In setting goals, I'd like to share a story that talks about the barbed wire. A few years ago, I was in Central California and I was renting an ATV to ride in the sand dunes by Pismo Beach. It's a Central California city. It's very, very beautiful. And as I'm signing away my life with all the disclaimers, the guy that's running the booth has said, "Do you mind if I share a piece of advice with you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, of course." He said, "Don't ride too close to the barbed wire at the edge of our property." And I kind of shrugged my shoulder. I said, "Well, yeah, of course." He said, "No, no, no. Every year we have people that think they're far enough from the barbed wire, but they hit a rut, and at the speed they're going, they run into the barbed wire." And this is relevant to Toastmasters because it talks about goal setting. To me, the barbed wire, the minimum standard of excellence, is distinguished. So as a club, as a division, as a district, we never aim only for distinguished, because Murphy is very, very active in Toastmasters, and anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And so that's why we aim for the top goals. Why not? Why not aim for it? All right. So area directors, you should be aiming for President's Distinguished Area. And the requirements are 50% of your club base is distinguished or better, plus one distinguished club, and a net club growth of one new club. What does that net mean? Are we going fishing? What does net mean? Go ahead.
One you started with.
Pardon?
One more than you started with.
Exactly. So if you lose one, you have to now build two in your area. So that's President's Distinguished Area. And I recommend that you guys are shooting for President's Distinguished Area. As a district, Chris has set a goal to be a Smedley Distinguished District. Well, how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by building one new club per area. And since we have 37 areas, that means 37 new clubs. And then, of course, supporting the existing clubs to be distinguished. Now, if we look at the numbers, this is pretty amazing. Of course, we don't have the new numbers for District 123 because it hasn't been set up yet. But I'm just going to give you this as an example because I want you to see how this is a possibility. This is not just a pie in the sky crazy model that Alfred came up with. If we have a base of 170 clubs, the TI go for Smedley might be 184 or a gain of 14. All right, guys, pull out your calculators. But if we build 37 new clubs, how many could we lose and still be Smedley distinguished?
23.
All right. So think about that. Let that sink in. We might, I hope we don't, but we might lose some clubs through no fault of the district and area directors. You might try to coach them, but they're done and they throw in the towel, and that's fine. You know, we don't like to see it, but it's reality. We could lose 23 clubs and still be Smedley distinguished. Isn't that exciting? I hope so.
Yes.
Thank you, somebody. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I want you to see the possibility. And I have had a number of my mentees take this plan to heart, and they achieved, back then, President's Distinguished was the highest recognition. And so they achieved that. One lady in District 1, her name was Regina Rhymes, really took this to heart, held her area directors accountable. And you know what her result was, ladies and gentlemen? She was #1 in the Western Hemisphere, #4 in the world. So I just want you to know that this is a real plan that can work. By focusing on building new clubs and, again, supporting our existing clubs, you can achieve Smedley. So it's not Chris being this wild, crazy lady with, you know, where is she getting this from? It really is doable. It is workable. So if we focus on the mission of building new clubs, that is our #1 priority as a district. 80% of our district effort should be spent on that. And again, those of you that aren't even part of the district team that are here to learn more about it, I'm so excited for you. We're going to be getting into the nuts and bolts shortly. And of course, Iona as a PQD, her team, she's handling the second half of the mission. So she and her team are 100% focused on that second half. But as a district team overall, we're focused on those building new clubs. Well, why even build new clubs? I mean, we've talked about as a district, if we're not building, we're dying. But let's get even more elementary than that. Why should we even be building new clubs? Well, let me tell you my own personal example. I am so grateful to Beverly Andrews. Beverly Andrews chartered that club at my company that I would eventually join. And I joined back in my 20s. So I've been in a long time. Those of you that saw me earlier could see the gray hair. And so if I had not had a club that was there at my workplace where my colleague could invite me to join them at lunchtime, well, I'm already at work. I eat lunch. So it was very convenient for me. To be honest, I'm not sure I ever would have joined Toastmasters. And had I not joined Toastmasters, I would not have gained 5 promotions in my professional career. At least 2 of them, I know it directly. It was a result of the leadership skills I learned in Toastmasters that got me those positions. My life would have been completely different. As a young man in my 20s, I wasn't looking for extracurricular activities, but this was convenient. It was there, and it changed my life. Think about how you personally have benefited from Toastmasters. What if the club you originally joined hadn't been there? Would you have still found Toastmasters? Some of you might have, but since your original club was so amazing, maybe it wouldn't have been quite the same experience, right? So by building new clubs, you're giving that opportunity for other people to gain the benefits of our program, which is just amazing. Does this make sense, guys?
Yep.
Okay, because if we don't understand why, then, why even bother, right? So we've discussed already about the mission of Toastmasters. We talked about the mission of the district, why building new clubs is primary in the mission of the district. And we've talked for everybody why it's a good idea to build new clubs. So the steps to charter, and we're going to go through all of these in great detail. It starts with a lead, but we also need a sponsor and mentor. We're going to make an initial contact with the key contact in that lead. We're going to have a pre-meeting with that individual. They will do the publicity. We will conduct a launch meeting. I learned that term launch meeting from District 5 a number of years ago. They said, Alfred, we want to make it clear what the purpose of this meeting is. We're not there just to demonstrate Toastmasters. We're there to launch a new club. So we're calling it a launch meeting. I love that. And then, of course, that there's nothing, the job's never done till the paperwork is done. And Leslie, do we have experts in the district that can help with the paperwork if somebody doesn't know a thing about it?
We have a ton.
Okay, so guys, don't even worry about that aspect. But again, those are all the steps to charter. And by the way, at the end of this, area directors, we're gonna ask you a date by which you're gonna provide us a lead, and we're gonna provide you a lot of. We're not asking for the actual lead at this point. We're just asking you for a date by which we want to get the lead. And it would be beneficial for the district to charter all of our new clubs, all 37 new clubs, if possible, by September 30th. And why would that be a good idea? Leslie, can you explain that to the audience? Why would chartering a club by September 30th be a great thing for the district?
I think the earlier, the better. We like to, because when you charter early, you actually get double payment.
Okay, actually, you're going to get triple payments. Okay, we're going to get the charter payment. Then you're going to get the October dues, and then you're going to get the April dues. So it's going to be 3 payments. And this is the other wonderful thing about building new clubs and helping the district. It's a 2-for-1. One of the goals for the district is a membership goal. Well, the district, again, we've already determined, can't control members joining and leaving clubs, but the district can control members by bringing in new clubs. So for every new club, we bring in at least 20 new members, and depending on the timing, we could build that club. If we build it early, we could get triple payments from it. And if we did that, Oh my gosh, that would be so amazing. Chris, couldn't you just imagine having all 37 clubs already built? You already know you're going to be Smedley distinguished, and now it's just a matter of helping all your existing clubs get across the line and be distinguished.
That would be spectacular, Alfred.
JD, you had a question?
I just wanted to point out another thing about bringing new members in with clubs and with just in the existing clubs as well as new clubs. The members who are brought in earlier are more likely to become the next leaders of the club. People who come into the clubs later on in the year are less likely to take on those leadership positions early.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's an excellent point, Jade. Exactly. It gives you a bigger pool to recruit for leaders. So area directors, we want you to ensure that a new club is chartered in your area during your term. Okay, you're going to own that goal, but we're not asking you to personally charter the club. We want you to provide us a viable lead. And like I said, at the end of the presentation, that Chris is going to do a roll call and just give us a date by which you're going to provide us a lead. We're not telling you what that date is. You tell us. Obviously, the earlier, the better. And then when you visit your clubs, you'll be identifying the sponsors and the mentors. Give us those three components and the district team will take it. Leslie and his team will take it from there. Now, if you want to participate in more of the process, you're certainly welcome to, but it's not a requirement. Okay? Does that sound fair, guys?
It does,
good.
yes.
Yeah.
Kareem had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Kareem?
No, actually, I was just simply applauding JD's point. That was a very good point. Most people don't think about that.
Yeah, no, that was a great point. Yeah, get them in early, and then they can quickly become officers. I agree. And we need good people to start our leadership pipeline. I mean, it starts at the club level. When we can get good people at the club level, we have good people to select as area directors, and we have good area directors. We have good people to bring in the top. And when we have good people at the top of the district, we get good candidates for international director. I was on the International Leadership Committee this year, and I will tell you, it was very disappointing. All of our subcommittees had to go recruit additional candidates because some of those that had thrown their hat in the ring, we did not feel were qualified for the position. So it all starts at the club level. We want good quality people to join us. All right, so let's talk about the whole process. All right, let's start with a lead. Without a lead, we're dead. Now, leads can come from anywhere. They can come from world headquarters. People contact Toastmasters International and they say, I'd like to start a club. Next thing you know, Chris and Leslie get an email from world headquarters or it goes into their system. Please contact this individual. Some of them already have paid the charter fee. It's like, whoo, all right, these guys are hot to trot. You can also get leads from current members. Say, where else might we have a club? Talk to your neighbors, your coworkers. There are so many possibilities. District 100 does this exercise called the Google Walk, where they will use Google the city that they're looking at and see what companies come up. And they'll actually walk into those buildings, those locations. This was more pre-COVID, but it's returning now that we're coming out of COVID, that they actually walk into the building and say, who would we need to talk to about Toastmasters? You can assess existing clubs to identify opportunities for new clubs. Now, you guys, you younger folks might not be familiar with this, but in the olden days, we had these pieces of paper. And these paper had cities on them and roads, and you could get them for free from the auto club, and they're called maps, you know. And if you had a paper map, you could actually put dots on the map and see where your existing clubs are. And if you see that map, you could maybe instantly say, oh my gosh, look, there's this whole area over here, this community that is not served by a Toastmasters club. You could also look at existing clubs to help identify. If you have, and I know again, COVID, this has made this very difficult, but we are coming out of COVID, yay, you know. And pretty soon we're going to be meeting in restaurants. I had my first in-person meeting, and I know Chris has already attended some in-person meetings, so it is coming. So if you have a restaurant that has a breakfast Toastmasters club, you could look at that same location for an evening club. And I will tell you that the people that are available in the morning are not available in the evening and vice versa. So those two clubs meeting at the same location are not going to be stepping on each other's toes. Another thing you might do is even a day diversity. Maybe Tuesdays is people's church group, so they're not available, but Wednesday would work fine for them. There's ways to do that. You want to target communities over 10,000 people and corporations over 150 people. And when we say 150, we're talking mostly white collar workers. Those are our primary target market. Not that blue collar couldn't become Toastmasters, but typically they're less interested in the personal development as white collar workers. Now, the reason I have the McDonald's symbol there with communities over 10,000 people is McDonald's has a situation where they won't build a restaurant unless there's at least 10,000 people there to support it. So if you look at all the McDonald's in your area, you could see how many possibilities there are for new Toastmaster clubs. Now, I don't know what the rule is for Tim Hortons, you know. Timmy might have even a smaller population that'll support a Timmy's. I think you only need 10 people. I think that 10 Canadians can support a Timmy's. Anyway, leads are all around you. I have seen some districts where they have, gone to chambers of commerce. There's a document, I think it's available. It might be available in the US. It's called, I know it's available in the US. It might be available in Canada. It's called Reference USA. Libraries have that. And it allows you to do search for companies, and you can filter it by size. And so you can get a whole list. District 52 did this a number of years ago, and they ended up with a list of 8,000 companies within the district that were of the size that could support a club. So that was pretty exciting. Where do you start? We can look at community centers. Last time I was in Ontario, I visited a club that met in a library in Mississauga. And so sometimes libraries have meeting rooms, churches. And here in Southern California, at the height of its power, we had the church that Robert Schuller run, and we had 4 clubs within that church, schools and institutions. And when I say schools, personally, I'm not so interested in the students, because, at least speaking from my own experience, I worked my way through school and I really needed to focus on my studies. I didn't have time for extracurricular activities, but I know there are many university clubs that are in existence, and that's fine. But what about the faculty? Doesn't the faculty need Toastmasters, right? And we've already mentioned the corporations and communities. So let's have a quick brainstorm session. Let's just quickly, if you could, just think about where we might build a club near you, okay? Let's just take a couple minutes for that. We won't do the full 5.
At every bank.
Feel free to use the link to the map that I provided and click on your division. That might help you.
Yeah, one of the things that I've heard and I've used before is someone said, just like McDonald's, if you check where the Walmarts are located, they're typically located in areas where you can find a club. Also, yesterday I went cycling with my son, and I was actually looking at a number of companies in a specific area in Brampton. And I was thinking, why don't we have any clubs in this area? Because, I noticed Coca-Cola and a bunch of club offices in that area. So I think these are all opportunities.
Absolutely. And going back to the McDonald's example, I know of a situation where there's a McDonald's on a 6-lane road. There's 3 lanes going south, 3 lanes going north. And there's a McDonald's on the southbound lanes at the intersection. And at the exact same intersection, there's another McDonald's on the northbound lanes. And why is that? Well, the reason is people are too lazy to do a U-turn. And I know I'm guilty. When I'm going down the street, I'm looking for a place. I'm just looking to the right. I'm not looking to the left. And so both of those McDonald's at the same intersection thrive because they're addressing different audiences, northbound and southbound. All right. Well, have any, let's have some sharing. If anybody came up with some ideas on a new club, just an idea at this point.
Alfred, we've got someone in chat saying the BNI, the Business Networking International Group. Ken Weinberg says the YMCA.
Yeah.
Bruce says an office building doesn't have to be company specific, but helps that company offer up their space. And Shukla Datta says meet the city councilor.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. And, when we talk about company clubs, we have open clubs and we have closed clubs. And what does that mean? A closed club means it's only going to be members of that organization that are allowed to join. And when I had a company club at my company, the last one I chartered, our rule was it was only open to people that had access to the campus. Meaning it wasn't just employees, but if we had contractors that had a badge and they were able to get through the gate, they were welcome to join us. But it was closed in that we didn't want to have to be rushing to the security desk and signing people in that were not didn't have access to the company, because then you end up being late for the meeting when they're late. So that was just our rule. So if you have a company that wants to have an open club because they may not have enough employees to support a 20-member club, but what we do need, this is the key piece, is we need a conference room that could accommodate at least 20 to 25 people. If the conference room is only good enough for 10 people, that's not going to be a viable location. In the end, and this is a key for community clubs too, the number one key is a meeting location. If you don't have a meeting location, that's going to be very hard to have that club. And we want to build, to the extent possible, in-person clubs, because that's where the real Toastmasters experience happens. The online meetings are better than nothing, but nobody's overcoming their fear of public speaking in these online meetings, right? Any other ideas?
Yes, city halls and public libraries are great places to start because they're nexus places, but they're also where a lot of people get together. But they're also places that have facilities that will be available to you and at cheaper, if not free. And that is a sustainable, that keeps the cost low, especially at the get-go. And it will be easier to maintain them because there's going to be constant flow and greater promotional abilities through them.
Excellent, excellent. And what you do is, once you identify the city hall or whatever the location is, to actually create a lead out of it. It can't just be the location. We need to know the name of the person, the top person there that we would want to reach out to, and ideally a phone number, because I'd prefer to have a conversation with that individual. But if you can't get the phone number, at least their email. So it can't just be St. Mary's Church in Brampton. We need more than that. We need a contact, somebody that we can actually talk to. And by the way, area directors, if your first lead doesn't pan out, that's fine. It can happen. We'll just come back to you and ask for another one. And we can do it. We can get these clubs. Any other ideas before we move on?
There are two comments, Dinesh. Dinesh says newcomers need not only communication and leadership integration in the Canadian culture, and Toastmasters offers a good support. And Ori says contact the Rotary members as we have a partnership.
I'd like to also add that there are some grocery stores that have a meeting room.
Oh.
Where they have, we have in the past, for example, had our district conference meetings at a Longo's store where the conference room was large enough to accommodate us all. And Longo's is a great opportunity to think about approaching their ownership for starting a new Toastmasters club. But since Longo's is now owned by the same people who own Sobeys, and quite oftentimes Sobeys and Longo's are in so close proximity to each other, their employees can benefit from knowing how to communicate with their clients.
Wonderful, wonderful. Grant, see, I learned something today. I always learn something in these presentations too. I had never heard of meeting rooms in grocery stores before, so that's something I learned today. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Thank you. And with respect to Rotary, I just want to caution you there, as past presidents, we were informed when the Alliance was originally formed that Rotary did not want us to be approaching the Rotarians about chartering Toastmaster clubs. That was not the purpose of the Alliance. So, you know, if you want to visit them and mention you have a club, maybe they can come and join. And if they get enough people and it just naturally comes to be that you might get a club out of that, fine. But just be cautious about that, because Rotary did not want that as a part of the Alliance. That was not one of their objectives or what they were looking for. All right, so let's talk about the club sponsor. What do you think the job of the club sponsor is? Again, this is the interactive portion. Iona, you know, let's get somebody else to answer.
Get
To promote the club.
Get some energy and creative juices flowing with the executive and the members.
Yeah. To what end, though? What is the job of the
distinguished status?
To get a charter strength.
To get the club chartered, Dan. To get the club chartered, right? Charter is the goal. All right. And by the way, since it came up, let's talk about that number 20, right? That 20 is required to charter a new club. You know why Toastmasters came up with that number 20? There is an actual method to the madness.
You're able to fill in the agenda without having to double dip.
Exactly, Ava. If you look at all the different roles, of course, your actual club may vary. It takes about 13 people on average to fill all the different roles. And of course, not everybody can attend every meeting. So with 20 people in a club, you're ensured that you have enough people to review and perform all the meetings rules without doubling up. I joke about, you know, and tell me if you haven't visited a club where this was a situation. You stand up, you do the opening, you get called for table topics, you speak, and then you're called to evaluate the other speaker. And then you have a guest at that meeting and say, you want to join? They say, heck no, this is too much work. You know? But with 20 people, you can spread that workload out. Nobody feels overloaded. And when I was on the board, we surveyed our members. You know what the number one thing our members want when they speak in their club?
Evaluations.
An audience?
An audience. An audience. They want an audience. Imagine you've worked all week on your speech. You've worked in front of the mirror with the gestures. Your dog even knows all your movements, you know, and you get to the meeting and there's 5 people there. It's like, really? You know, come on. So yeah, they want an audience. All right. But you guys nailed it. As far as sponsor, your job is to get the club chartered. And so you, with the help of the club growth directors team, you would contact the new club lead. If the sponsor that has been selected is not really super strong on the Toastmasters program, that's fine. They will help contact that lead, but we're going to set up a meeting with that person and to have that initial meeting. We're going to talk about that. They're going to serve as the TI contact for the launch meeting. So they make sure that they're getting all the RSVPs from the people that are going to attend, and they're going to recruit the launch team. Again, Leslie and his team will help with that, but the sponsor is ultimately responsible for doing the launch team. A few years ago, I launched a club, and we were trying to get it chartered by the end of the year. And the organization that I was working with could only do the launch meeting on June 20th. And I'm like, ooh, that's kind of late in the term, but I launch in one meeting, and I'm going to explain how we do that in this presentation. You're going to learn my secret, how I launch in one meeting. I said, okay, let's go for it. And I got a call earlier that week from the district leadership, the club growth director, and they said, Alfred, we're so sorry, but the night of your launch meeting is the night of our district officer installations for next term, and nobody from our launch team is available to help you with your launch meeting. And I thanked him for his call. I said, hey, I appreciate you calling, but actually as the sponsor, I've already put together my team. I wasn't expecting the district to support me in this. I already put together my team. And that's what the sponsor does. Again, the district is there to help, but the district, the club sponsor puts together the launch meeting members. And we'll talk again about those rules later. You want to make sure that the new club elects their officers, that they figure out all the ins and outs. How frequently are they going to meet? Where are they going to meet? The time of day, all those little intricacies, and then submit the charter paperwork. And then once it's all done, plan a charter presentation. And I know, invite the district director. Chris would love to come out and be there if possible, geographically and time-wise. She would love to be there. But if Chris can't make it, even the area director, just having somebody there from the district, have a big party to celebrate that, okay? And then once that's done, you're done. Club sponsor is a very limited focus. And if an area director chose to be a club sponsor, I would be okay with that, because the way I'm explaining today, it's only a month from lead to charter. And I don't think that's such a bad deal. You know, a month you can do that. But we're not asking that. I want to clear. We're not asking that. It's just you could do it. All right. What's the role of the new club mentor?
To mentor the club for the first year to help them become successful, distinguished.
Yeah, to get them off on the right course, right? Okay. So Toastmasters, officially, they require 6 months. I personally ask that our mentor stay with the club at least 12 months. It's been 4 years and I'm still with the club that I just was talking about, that I chartered, because I've just stayed with them. And there will be times where I will at the end of the meeting say, okay, I'm still your club mentor and here's some things I want to bring up. You want to make sure that the club officers understand their duties. You need to familiarize the club officers with the Toastmasters education program. Now that program, it has a weird name. Do you guys know, what is that thing called again?
Pathways.
Pathways. That's right. That's what it's called. And we have levels and pathways. So you're never going to talk about CCs and ATMs and all these other old awards. They don't exist anymore. It is pathways. That's the only thing you talk about, right? And then you want to indoctrinate the club with the Toastmasters standards. I call these standards of excellence. And it is so important that the new club mentor know these standards and enforce them. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. One of the standards of excellence we have in Toastmasters is all of our meetings start and end
on time.
On time. Meeting management is one of the key skills we teach in Toastmasters. What are some other standards that we have in Toastmasters that you guys know, but a new club, they would have no idea that you would need to share?
Follow Toastmasters branding.
Follow Toastmasters branding. Yes. Good.
One person talks at a time.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's common courtesy. Okay.
Well, I mean, there's no talk back. Like,
oh, right.
The speech is not interrupted by people.
There you go. Right. And I've had evaluators too, where they're giving the evaluator and the speaker's like, well, no, that's not what I meant. No, just listen. Good. What are other standards?
Assigning mentors. Assigning mentors. Beautiful.
And we're supportive.
Okay, good.
Have a full agenda.
Follow the agenda. And when do the assignments come out for that meeting? Does it come out the night before?
No.
That the agenda and the assignments are delivered at least a week prior to the meeting, so people have a chance to prepare, right? I'll give you a couple other ones for me personally. Again, this is just the way I do things. Evaluations must be positive in tone with at least 1 point of improvement, and the speaker needs to personalize their language. Now, I was at a district conference for District 33 a few years ago in beautiful downtown Bakersfield. Now, those of you that don't know where Bakersfield is, it's out in the Central Valley of California. And let me just say very politely, nothing against the folks in Bakersfield, but if you haven't been there, you haven't missed much. Okay. It's like, okay, it's just anyway, so I'm there and they're having the district evaluation contest. So these are the best evaluators in the district, supposedly. And the one evaluator gets up and said, your speech had great gestures. A declarative statement stated as fact. The very next evaluator stood up and said, your speech lacked gestures. Again, a declarative statement stated as fact in direct opposition. No, you have to personalize your language. I felt your speech lacked gestures because I'll tell you, both of those evaluators could have been correct. The evaluator that saw gestures was sitting up front and saw all the low gestures that were done that the front of the audience saw. But anybody in the back of the audience saw nothing because all those gestures were covered by the audience. So that's why you need to personalize your language. And one final standard for me and my clubs, when we do table topics, we don't have time for everybody to answer a table topic. So what we do is the table topics master asks the question and then pauses and then picks somebody to answer. Because if I, as the table topics master, say, okay, Irene, this next question's for you. We're all going to take a little mental holiday and just wait to see how Irene answers. And halfway through Irene's response, we're going to, oh, now I know what I would have said. By asking the question first before picking out the name, you force everybody to go through that mental exercise. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so those are the kinds of things we talk about with Toastmaster standards. And Iona, I think that you could do a training for club sponsor and mentors, new club mentors and club coaches, and go over these sorts of things. Because in my opinion, a new club mentor is establishing the culture of a club coach is fixing the culture of a club that's having some issues, obviously. And then you need to make sure as mentor, you make sure the club starts recruiting members and helps them to retain with that personal touch that was mentioned earlier. The biggest mistake new clubs make is they think, oh, we got to our 20, we're good. And they just don't really think about bringing in new members. You always want to bring in new members. All right. Any questions on clubs mentors?
There are a couple of comments. One person says, Panos says, there shall be no non-credited speeches.
Yes, all projects, all speeches are project speeches, another standard. Excellent.
Cheryl says, have an agenda.
Yep.
Panos says, keep filling up those written evaluation forms.
Beautiful.
Bruce Lang says, no cursing, avoid taboo subjects of sex, politics, race, and religion.
Yep. Exactly. Wonderful. Wonderful. Great points. Thank you, Iona. Now,
I just added one. Sorry, Alfred. I just added one, but I sent it to a person rather than the entire group. So one of the things I think is very nice in a meeting is to ensure that people not on the agenda have an opportunity to speak, because the worst thing is if you, for whatever reason, you're not on the agenda, you get missed by the table topics master, and then you leave the meeting feeling, oh, I wish I had an opportunity to say something. This is a speaking club.
Mm-hmm. Well, and typically that's what the table topics master is supposed to do, is they're supposed to pick people that don't have roles and start with those. Now in our lower membership clubs, they end up, having to pick somebody, but pick the timer, pick the grammarian, pick, people that have minor roles versus a speaker or the Toastmaster. So absolutely, Leslie, if at all possible, we want everybody to speak. And what I do in my clubs at the beginning of the meeting, we have everybody introduce themselves. And I started this tradition when I chartered clubs because I'll be honest, I'll share a little secret with you guys. I'm terrible with names. And so when I had 20 new people, by them introducing themselves week after week, I got, okay, that's Leslie. Okay, now I know who that is. But also you get some people with that have names that are not easily pronounced. And so you hear how they pronounce their name. And so like we have a lady in one of my clubs that says her last name is Yargomskoya. And so, you need to know how do you pronounce that Russian name? So anyway, yeah, good point. So we get everybody to speak at least by that, but you want more than that if that's possible. Now, as far as the rules here, the sponsor could also be a new club mentor as well. So if the sponsor wanted to stay with the club and mentor them, they could. You can have 2 sponsors and 2 mentors. Some people do have 2 mentors, but let's also recognize the fact if we're building 37 new clubs this year and maybe even more, I talked to Johnny Uwe. He was when he was a district director, I'll use the current title. He was from District 75 in the Philippines, and they built 75 new clubs. And he said, you know what the biggest problem, Alfred, was when we chartered 75 new clubs? I said, no, what? He said, finding 75 qualified new club mentors. So you can have 2, but you know, as if you have one good one that is going to be there at all the meetings, I think that would be a good reason to have a second. If somebody says, hey, I'm not going to be able to make all the meetings, you want to have a second one. Personally, I like just to have one, because if I have a second person, everybody's not going to agree with all of my views. And when they disagree with me, I'm sorry, they're wrong. Just kidding. But I like to just do it myself. So once we have the lead, we're going to contact the top person in the organization. And this is how we're going to approach that person, okay? I'd like to have a short meeting with you to discuss the benefits of having a Toastmasters program in your organization. From Pat Johnson, a book. Oh, I just noticed I misspelled program. Sorry. We need to fix that. Whoops. So the Toastmasters, we don't want to call it a club because that sounds too chummy, you know, doesn't sound as educational. So we want to have a Toastmasters program in your organization. And if they say, no, thank you, we're not interested, you say, thank you very much. And next, if they're not interested, we're not going to waste our time. And there's some key words here, short. We're just talking about a short meeting, and they could determine what short means. I could do this in 5 minutes. I could do it in 15 minutes. We don't need more than 15 minutes. But if you ask for an hour with these busy top level people, you're not going to get it, whether it's the mayor, whether it's the CEO of the company. So you want to have a short meeting and to discuss the benefits. What's in it for them? JD, if you have a question or comment, just go ahead and add it.
I was just going to say that you have to distill it down to how they are going to benefit from it.
Yep.
Whether it's just somebody off the street, especially to CEOs or executives, anybody in a power position, you have to tell them how they will receive the benefit of what you're doing. They want to know that in 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes. If not,
exactly,
they're not going to be interested.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk the specifics of what you're going to say in a couple minutes, but yeah, this is just setting up that meeting. Exactly. And the benefits, JD, perfect. The benefits are key. But if they're saying, hey, I'm not interested in hearing how our organization could benefit, you're not going to get the corporate support for that club. So if they're not interested, I'm not wasting my time. You know, when I was international president, I did a corporate visit to District 22 in Kansas. And the district drove me an hour and a half out of town to do a radio station interview. And that's a big time chunk for my presidential visit, but it was worthwhile because the audience that was going to hear that radio station interview was millions of people. So they were really getting great coverage and advertising Toastmasters and letting them know about the benefits. But when we got into town, we had some time before the meeting. And so I said, well, let's see if we can just find out a new club opportunity for the district out here. And so we stopped by the Chamber of Commerce. We found out what the biggest employer was in town. And we popped in at the facility there. And this is a Friday morning out of the blue. And we went to the receptionist and I said, my name is Alfred Herzing. I'm the international president of Toastmasters Worldwide. And I'm here in town for a radio interview. And I was just wondering if the top executive was available so I could just introduce myself. And she said, well, the chief is not here today. It's Friday. He has today off, but I'll send out our HR manager. So the HR manager came out and I introduced myself and he says, no, thanks. We don't need Toastmasters. And I said, okay, thank you very much. And I left. And I told to everybody on the team that was with me, I said, that person's an idiot. Because to have the international president there and not at least have a short conversation about how their company could at least benefit, to not at least have the conversation and listen. That, to me, that showed a very narrow-minded person, and it's their loss. You have to believe in the conviction of the strength of our program, how it changes people's lives in a positive way. Like I said, I personally gained 5 promotions. My life is so much better because of Toastmasters. I have no problem coming forth with conviction, and if somebody doesn't get it, if they're not interested, I have no problem walking away and saying, next, you're an idiot. Of course, I don't tell them they're an idiot to their face, but I share that with the team.
A comment, Alfred?
Yep.
A number of clubs have been formed after a Speechcraft. Do you get into how to use Speechcraft to find leads or build clubs?
Speechcraft, in my opinion, is our #1 tool for building membership in existing clubs. And if you'd like to have me back, I do a workshop on that where I have had an 80% success rate of converting Speechcrafters into members. And yes, one of past international director Greg Scott used my technique at the University of Riverside and did charter a club out of it. So typically that's not the approach I would take, but it could be. But to me, Speechcraft is our #1 tool in building membership. And so again, when we're talking about supporting our existing clubs to achieve excellence, we need to make sure they know about Speechcraft. And like I said, I'll be happy to do that workshop for you guys. Okay.
Okay. You got a misprint. Program is.
Yeah. I already pointed that out. I caught that earlier. So thank you.
Karim's on the line, and I think his experience was that he's used Speechcraft to start several clubs. Isn't that right, Karim?
I've actually helped rebuild clubs through Speechcraft.
That's it. There you go.
So that's been very effective.
Yeah, Speechcraft is our #1 tool for building membership in existing clubs. So again, I'll be happy to do a workshop on that. So in that pre-meeting, you're going to discuss the benefits, as JD mentioned, what's in it for the organization, okay? When I do these meetings, I typically start with, have you ever been in a business meeting that didn't start or end on time? And the executive will say, oh yeah, threw my whole day off. Toastmasters can help you with that. Have you ever had anybody present to you and you knew they knew their material, but they just weren't getting to the point? They weren't conveying the information appropriately. Oh yeah, that's very frustrating. Toastmasters can help you with that. Would you like a way to do a performance appraisals that reinforces the good things your good employees are doing and yet still motivates them to do better in certain areas? Oh yeah, that would be helpful. Toastmasters can provide that. I usually have to say no more than that and they're already sold. A lot of times, people say Toastmasters is the best kept secret. I don't think so. We've had more multi-million people go through the organization, and many people know. Yeah, are there people that don't know about Toastmasters? Of course, but it's very well known. I can't tell you the number of times I went into an executive meeting and the person I met with was, oh, Toastmasters, I love Toastmasters. They know a relative that went through the program or a subordinate, and they couldn't believe the growth they saw in the individual. And so they're already sold before you even start. What we want to do in this pre-meeting, once we sell them on, having a club in their organization, is we set a date for a launch meeting, and we do it no more than 2 weeks out. The reason is, today it is July 10th. And if I were saying to you, we're going to have a launch meeting for this club on August 8th, you're going to think, well, man, that's so far out. I'm not going to even worry about putting it on my calendar at this point. But if it's July 10th and we say we're having a launch meeting on the 17th, oh, okay, I need to, that's coming up next week. I need to put that on my calendar. No matter what date you pick, you're always going to have some people that can't attend it. Okay, so just pick one. And the reason you want a little bit of time, no more than 2 weeks, but I would say at least a week, is you want to make sure the organization has time to publicize the meeting. If it's a community club, you want to use social media, bulletin boards and grocery stores, libraries, whatever, but you need time to publicize it. All right. We want a minimum of 30 people at the launch meeting. And I tell them, this is our requirement. For us to do the launch meeting, I need you to get 30 people there. Why do I want 30 people at a launch meeting?
Because you're going to have half of them join.
Well, more than half. Probably, I'm going to get my 20.
Hopefully more, but the more people that you have out, the greater the
Yeah.
number of people.
If I have 30 people, again, I've done this a number of times. If I have 30 people at the meeting, I'm getting 20 to sign up, at least. And again, I launch in one meeting. I hear these horror stories of clubs that take months and months and months to charter. And boy, you know, guys, do you want to do it quick and fast and easy, or do you want to do it the hard, long way?
That's right.
Can you share some ideas on how to get them to pay up right there and then, because there is that hesitation.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Remind me when we get to the close in the launch meeting, okay? Great question, and remind me, because I don't always talk about that. Thank you. Then when we're meeting with the executive, and again, if it's a corporation, it's clear, but if it's a community club, you're meeting with a decision maker, I mean, not an influencer in the community. It could be a mayor, it could be a person that's very well respected in the community, somebody that is going to attract people to that club. And I asked them for a quote of support for Toastmasters. Would it be okay if we got a statement of support from you that we could use in publicizing the meeting? 90% of the time they say, yeah, right away. Sometimes they hesitate. And when they hesitate, I say, we'll be happy to draft that for you. When I say that, 100% say yes. And then this was brought up too about the dues. You have to find out what the organization is going to pay and what the individual members are going to need to pay at the launch. So some organizations will pay for everything. Some organizations will cover the charter fee. Some will say, no, we don't have the budget for it, and that's fine. But you need to know what that is so that you go into the launch meeting knowing what you're going to pay. All right. We're going to discuss, this is to JD's point, we want to discuss the benefits of Toastmasters, not the features. So again, I talked about this. Impromptu speaking skills too. I talk about impromptu speaking skills too as another area that we help. I said, have you ever had somebody where you walked up to them and you asked them for a quick status update and they were just mumbling and they were flustered and they didn't know how to say anything to you? So we can help with that as well. And this is what I say, the skills that your employees will learn in Toastmasters will improve their communication skills as they talk with your management team, their peers, and most importantly, your customers. And that usually drives home too, because, these people, when they talk to the customers, they represent the company. And if they don't come off fluid or smooth or knowledgeable, that reflects poorly on the organization. So like I said, we set the launch date no more than 2 weeks out. We require a minimum of 30 people. Have the, this is a new idea. I had one of my club growth directors this last year with the online meetings, when they were sending the membership application along with the RSVPs, when people responded to the meeting, they went ahead and sent the membership application so people had it in advance. And listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. He chartered 6 clubs where they had 20 applications plus before they even had the launch meeting. That was pretty cool. I hadn't thought of that. So I thought that was pretty cool. So you can send the applications ahead of time, but make sure everybody has it. All right. And then we need that statement of support. The employees are busy. They're not looking for anything extra to do. A lot of employees these days are working through lunch, So here's the quote I provide. The skills you learn in Toastmasters will help you in your personal life and your career here at XYZ Corporation. By the way, I've provided this presentation to the district and they will be happy to give it to you. So you don't have to write all this down. You'll get the slides. With my misspelling of program, I'll go back and correct that. All right. So the skills you learn in Toastmasters will help you in your personal life and your career here at XYZ. I encourage you to check it out, The Big Boss. Now, if you got a statement of support like that from your CEO, along with an invitation, we're having a launch meeting next Tuesday in the Ontario conference room, what kind of response do you think you're going to get? What kind of response do you think you're going to get?
A positive, overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. So you want to make sure, like I said, are they going to pay the charter fee? If not, you're going to add that to the charter member cost. You want to collect 6 dues plus. I capitalize it because this is key, plus the prorated portion. The biggest mistake new clubs make in forming is not collecting the prorated portion. I have seen many clubs die immediately after collecting the initial 6 months dues and then having to come back a couple months later and asking for the prorated. They're like, wait a minute, we just gave you all this money. Now you want more? It just leaves a bad taste in their mouth. By the way, I also do the same thing with new members when they're joining my club. I will always collect the prorated portion plus the next 5 months if they're within a couple months of the next dues period, because I'd rather have a new member pay like $80 to join initially. And then when it comes to renewal, they find out it's only 45 plus $1 per month. So a total of 51. They're like, oh, this is a bargain. But if I charge them $60 and I come back a couple months later asking for another 51, they're going to be like, what the heck? What is this, a racket? It's all psychology. And then even if the organization wants to cover all of the costs, I always recommend that the members pay at least something, even if it's $1 a month, because then they have some personal money vested into it. All right. Now, I've known companies where they have said, we're not going to reimburse any costs until you achieve your first path. Once the path is completed, we'll reimburse your costs. When I was international president, my third vice president was John Greiner. And when John became international president, he visited Standard & Poor's in New York City. I'm sure you've heard of the S&P 500, Standards & Poor's. And that company did something really amazing. They wouldn't pay any fees initially, but when their members achieved the competent communicator, again, the old award, the company paid the member $1,000. Can you imagine? I have to believe there was a waiting line to get into that club. But if you think about it from a company standpoint, that's actually an excellent investment. Think about how much better a person, that employee as a communicator is, having gone and completed 10 speeches in the old manual. They definitely got their value for that $1,000. It was a good investment for them. And boy, for the employees, what a wonderful thing. So you have to know this cost to join, because at the launch meeting, you have to be prepared. Who's ready to join? It's going to cost you $142 today. You know, who's ready to go? Boom. So when you do a launch team, how many people do you need to do a launch team?
You could do it with one. But
yes, Iona, exactly. As was said in my introduction, when I was on a business trip to India, I conducted 2 launch meetings for 2 separate companies in 2 separate cities where we launched in one meeting, and I was a one-man demo team, launch team. And it was a crazy meeting. I'm running around the room and doing all these different things. One club videotaped it, and I always wanted to go back and visit that club and see if they had their members running around the room like I was afterwards. But obviously that's not ideal, but you could do it with as few as 3 people. I think would be a very viable launch team. You could do 5. You don't need a whole army of folks coming in. You need a Toastmaster, and also somebody that's going to be a closer. That may not be the Toastmaster, but one of your people has to be the closer. What's the closer going to say at the end?
Ask them.
Yep. Who's ready to join? Who's ready to join? And you want to have some shills in the audience, people that you already know are ready to join. And they're like, I'm joining. And you create this energy and enthusiasm. People like looking around, oh my gosh, I better jump onto this thing. All right. You need a table topics master. The speaker. When you pick a speaker for your launch team, do you want your district champion for the international speech contest?
Nope.
Why not, Dan?
Because that's something that is not what we're here to do. We're not here to make world champions. We're here to instill confidence in people. So you want to show them someone who has actually learned some of those skill sets early on in their Toastmasters career.
Well, no, the problem, Dan, is if they see a world champion caliber speaker, they're going to just feel like, oh my gosh, I could never be like that. They won't be able to identify with that person. So really, you want somebody that's given 3 speeches maybe out of the program. They're just getting started. And so that's somebody that they would be able to relate to. And I personally would always say the topic for that speech is how I'm already benefiting by being a member of Toastmasters. All right. And then you need a timer. You don't need a general evaluator, grammarian, joke master. You know, every club has different roles, but you know, you don't need all those ancillary things. And if you have a sponsoring club, as you're aware, or you maybe not be aware, but you can have a sponsoring club. The club sponsor's own club quite often can get credit as a sponsoring club. So the sponsor can go back to his or her club and ask, you know, who wants to help me with this? Like I said, that's what I did with the last club that I had chartered. I just went to my clubs and said, you know, hey, I'm doing this launch meeting. This is when it is. We'd love to have you be part of the team. Would you be available? And people said yes.
Alfred,
yes.
What do you think about having one of the members of the executive or of the company coming and speaking at that first meeting?
Unless they're a Toastmaster, I wouldn't recommend it because, again, we want to keep this short. We want to have it focused. We already have that statement of support. So it's already clear that we have the executive support. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say no if they wanted to come in at the beginning and say, hey, I'm really excited you guys all turned out and welcome. And I hope you guys seriously consider joining. That would be wonderful to do, but I wouldn't want them to give a whole speech type of thing, you know.
Okay.
That's just me. Again, you guys can do this any way you want. And if you did that, you know, it could be successful. Absolutely. We had a district, I won't say what district it was, but they had a very bad experience. The CFO of the company was going to give a speech at a meeting, and this was intended to be a launch meeting, and 100 people were in attendance. There was a district representative there because they were expecting to charter 3 clubs out of the group. But the person organizing the launch meeting made a couple key mistakes. One, they scheduled it for an hour and a half. That's too long, folks. We're going to talk about this in a minute. Your launch meeting needs to be no longer than an hour, and the demonstration portion of it should be only a half hour. You want to leave in the second half hour to answer questions and get people signed up. But they went for an hour and a half, so people started to leave after the first hour, and they didn't have a closer to ask the key question, who's ready to join? Guess how many members they got for that 100 member? None.
None.
0. It was a complete disaster. So yeah, you don't want to do that. Again, this is an abbreviated Toastmasters meeting. You only want to do the demonstration part no more than half an hour. And on the table topics, I would start with an existing member. You can just have, you know, and the question again, how have you benefited from Toastmasters? That would be the thing. And then you could ask people and the guests, you know, to say, and this is one exception where I said, I don't mind, you know, we can ask for volunteers just for the launch meeting, but, you know, who would like to? And the question would be, how do you think you might benefit by joining Toastmasters? Okay. And again, who's ready to join? Have people in the audience prepared to start that flood. And somebody might say, oh, I don't have my payment information with you. Now you can even do credit cards, you know, on the charter paperwork. Right, Leslie?
Totally.
Yeah. So if somebody doesn't have their credit card, that'd be kind of odd. But if they don't, you can say, well, hey, Iona has her checkbook and I'm sure she'll write the check to cover you. You just have to reimburse her. You talk about the benefits of being a charter member. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity for this club. Once this club is chartered, nobody ever again in the history of the club can be a charter member. And it's funny because not everybody gets this. A few years ago, I was going to Smedley Club number 1's anniversary. I think it was a 70th anniversary or whatever at the time. And one of my members of my community club said, oh, are you a charter member of that club too? No.
Funny.
So you have to determine what the club name is. These are all the details, the meeting time, location, and frequencies. Elect the officers if they haven't already been selected. And again, on the dues, make sure you add the prorated portion. So you're collecting that full additional amount right up front. And again, as Leslie already pointed out, we have experts in the district that can help you get the paperwork done correctly. So there are resources that are available to help you to launch these clubs, building a Toastmasters club. There's also e-learning sessions. And again, the district team with Leslie and they are available to help you with this whole process. But again, it starts with the lead, okay? So what we've done so far is we've described the relationship between establishing new clubs and Toastmasters and the district missions. Again, it is first and foremost in the district mission that we build new clubs. We have to build new clubs to maintain the strength of the district. And District 123, I mean, you're a baby, you're just starting. These are your first steps. You want to start strong. Well, how exciting would it be? And I definitely see the possibility that you guys can and should be a Smedley Distinguished District. And then Iona next year follows that up, and she's a Smedley Distinguished District. And by the time Leslie becomes district director, well, that's just the way we do things here. We're Smedley Distinguished. We build clubs and we support our existing clubs, and everybody's successful. All right. We've described the steps that are involved in chartering the club, from the lead right through making initial contact with that lead, conducting that initial meeting. And there was a question before about the close, and I'm not sure it answered it. So let's come back to that because I want to make sure I answer that.
Hitesh had this question.
Yeah, Hitesh, what was your question again? I want to make sure I answer it.
So at the point where you say, who wants to become a member, and everyone's like, okay, and I think you answered some element of it, that somebody can write the check on their behalf and then they can get reimbursed, because not everyone's carrying that money right at the point of attendance.
Yeah, the point you want to make is, as soon as we have 20 members, we are chartering this club. We are chartering this club. Now, I do want to do a full disclosure. Remember that meeting I said on June 20th that I was having that launch meeting? I want to be transparent with you guys. It turned out that even though the person that had organized that meeting had 35 RSVPs, June 20th ended up being Game 7 of the NBA playoffs. And you can imagine if it was Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, which didn't go that long this year. But he did not get 35 that showed up. We ended up signing up 12 members that night. And then our next meeting was going to be in a couple weeks. But in the meantime, he followed up with people that had not made the meeting, but said they did want to join. And we ended up getting our 20 before we even had our second meeting. So technically we did charter in one meeting, but it didn't happen all that night. Excuse me, just full disclosure on that one. But usually we do get the 20 right there when we have the 30 in the audience. All right. So you want to point out the benefits of being a charter member. It's a once in a lifetime thing. Another thing I point out is, a lot of you guys are a little unsure about public speaking, and you're going to be growing together, and you're going to grow so quickly as a group. You're going to have guests come in just a few months, and they're going to be in awe of you, like, oh, you guys are so polished and good. And you get to do this together as a team and go through that process together. And again, knowing the cost, asking that question, who's ready to join? And you just do it. You close the sale. We know how valuable this program is, so we can sell it with confidence. Is that good?
Yeah, it's good. Karim mentioned something here that in the old days, we used to use for the first 20, there would be a perk attached to it. They would get the CC and CL manuals right away. And this encouraged members to join right away. But, with the pathways being all online and digital, is there some sort of incentive that if you sign up as a charter member, you would get X amount of something from TI, further down the road, some sort of a perk to encourage?
I don't think you need that. Okay. Again, see, you're weakening the power of our program when you do that. I think there's enough value in having the name recognition of being a charter member. Once you're a charter member, nobody ever again in the history of this club can be a charter member. And charter members will always be revered and given a special spot in this club. I have known club members and they're no longer active, but they'll come back and visit a club. And when the existing members find out that that person's a charter member, they're like, oh, wow, ooh, you know, you were there. So I think we have to be careful of thinking we need to give little toys and trinkets and incentives to people to do something that really is for their own good. And they have no other reason not to do it other than the benefit they will derive by doing the thing themselves. You know what I mean?
Got it. Yep.
And just so you guys know, I'm going to be public about this with your team. I have told them, do not waste marketing dollars incenting somebody to do something they would have done otherwise. I have seen districts in the past give away banners to clubs that charter, and no club has ever not chartered because they didn't have a banner. They're like, oh, we're going to charter, but wait a minute, we don't have a banner, so forget it. We're not chartering. Oh, you give us a banner. Okay, now we're going to charter. No, that never happens. So when a district does that, they're throwing that money away. So you want to make sure that you're incenting somebody to do something they would not otherwise do. And when it becomes an issue of becoming a member of Toastmasters, we want them to be active, engaged members. When I was international president, I chartered a club at my company. And so I was conducting a launch meeting. And guys, you have to imagine the scenario. Imagine you have the president of Toastmasters International doing a launch meeting. All right. The district director was there, the area director, all the dignitaries wanted to see how this was going to happen. Right. And during the launch meeting, I had one of the prospective members, one of the people in the audience, ask a question. They said, Alfred, if I join Toastmasters, do I have to speak? And, you know, it's kind of a funny question, right? And I said, well, let me explain about that. I mean, we in Toastmasters, we have an educational program where we have prepared speeches we want you to give. And if you join the club and you're not quite ready to start giving those prepared speeches, that's okay. We're okay with that. But we also have different roles in the club, like the timer, and the timer has to stand up and explain the timing procedure to the rest of the club. And that is speaking in the club. And if you're not willing to do that, then I personally would recommend you not join the club. And I'm sure the district director went, oh, I can't believe he just told somebody not to join. But it's like, yeah, we have standards, we have expectations. And if you're not going to be participants, you just want to be an observer, then come as a guest, come as often as you want as a guest. And when you're ready, then we can bring you on board and then you can start participating. But if you don't want to start doing the prepared speeches right away, that's fine. All right. Does that make sense, guys?
Hi, sir.
Good.
Just wondering, what do you say about pathways in the launch meeting, if anything?
There's really not much to say. Just once you join, you're going to get access to our educational program. It's online and we'll help you get signed up and started right away. I don't think you need to say much more than that. I think you should, you know, let them know it's online and going to be accessible that way.
Actually, Alfred, if I could add to that, it's
Please.
Chris. One of the things that I did extensively when we were in person a couple of years ago was to speak to the club about projects in pathways that were going to directly benefit them. For a community club, that could be something along the line of, have you ever always wanted to do a blog, or are you looking to promote your club or another organization you're working with on social media? For a corporate club, that was often some of the projects like manage change or create a public relations statement, things that related very directly to those who were present at the meeting. It was a good way to create engagement and let them know how what they learned in Toastmasters tied in directly with what they do in the rest of their lives.
Great. That's a great idea, Chris. That's wonderful. I haven't done that in the past, but I like that. That's absolutely great. So that really completes the presentation. You now know the basics of the mission. You know that the goal for area directors is to build a new club in your area. You own that goal. We're going to only require you to provide the lead, sponsor, mentor. The district will take it from there, but you're welcome to participate more if you would like. We talked about leads, how they can come from anywhere, and the district team has resources to help you in that brainstorming. We talked about the steps to charter. All you need to do is follow those steps. You know, how did Tampa Bay win the Stanley Cup? It was simple. All they had to do was win more games than Montreal, but it wasn't that easy. Well, it was pretty easy this time, but there was one they lost. But it's simple, but not necessarily easy. All you have to do is follow the steps and make that happen. And guys, I honestly know this. If you execute this plan, you will be Smedley. And by chartering your clubs early, you're going to also get those additional payments, and it's going to help build the energy. You're going to have so much energy from these new clubs. They're going to bring new energy and excitement to the district and just create momentum that's going to carry the existing clubs. It's just like your club. If you've had a club where nobody has joined the club in a while, all of a sudden you get a new member and now there's new energy, there's new topics. It's exciting and it all new again. It's fantastic. And so with that, I return conduct of the meeting over, and I know our district director is going to do a roll call with the area directors and get lead to when times or dates by which you're going to provide a lead.
Absolutely. One of the things that every single one of the area directors on this call and those who aren't on this call committed to when we did your interview for this job, and yes, it's a job, although the salary perhaps isn't what it could be, was to commit to provide a new club lead with a sponsor and mentor. And in every one of those interviews, we clarified together what a new club lead is. Like Alfred said earlier, that's not just, hey, there's an Amazon building over there. It's a contact. It's some detail on the community, the business, or whatever. So area directors, what I want you to do is put in the chat the deadline by which you think you can provide to me and to Leslie a new club lead in your area. I'm watching the chat to see those, and our admin manager, Sue Faludi, is going to keep track of those. Come on, there's 37 area directors. I want to see at least 30 dates. I know there's a couple people who couldn't be here today. Division directors, if you want to commit to this as well, your input is extremely welcome.
Great. This.
Aha, I've got a lead now. I've got a September 30th. What else have we got? 2 down, 35 to go. July, that looks great. August. Another September 30th. Excellent. We're going to have a whole pile of leads before September 30th. That's amazing. Looking good. Keep at it, people. Excellent. Second lead would be great, Dan. Look at all those dates coming through. That's great. Sue, are you getting all of these?
I am.
Good stuff. Let's keep Sue busy. Get your dates in there, folks.
Chris knows I like to be busy, so come on, let's see those dates.
That's okay, Cheryl. We have plenty of scope in your neck of the woods. Division B's got lots of opportunity, and I'd love to see another one from you as well. Seeing a long list. If you haven't put your date in yet, please be sure to put it in there. If it's a major, major secret, you can message Sue Faludi. But really, we're all accountable to each other here. I am accountable to 2,800 people in this district. You can be accountable to 70 by putting your date in the chat. More dates coming through. Excellent. Ah, there you go, Cheryl. Leslie's got one for you. We've got a few more coming through. Excellent. Alfred, do you have any final words before we hand this back to Iona?
Again, I honestly believe that the steps I presented are easy to do. Is just follow the steps. It's very easy. It's it's very simple, and you can do it. You can do it. It's a lot of fun. And those of you that have been involved in chartering a new club, you know, chartering a club is fun. It's so much fun. It's exciting. And you're like being a parent. You're launching something that conceivably could outlive you. And you're going to give tens, hundreds, maybe thousands of people in the future the benefit of participating in this program. So it really is an amazing and wonderful thing to do. I hope you found the presentation today logical in that you understood the whys. If you don't understand the whys, the rest wouldn't matter. And I hope that the steps also made sense. It again has been my pleasure to be with you. I'm so proud of District 123. You have a great team. Again, happy birth. I can't even say happy birthday because we'll do that July 1st will be the anniversary of your birth, but you guys are brand new and I'm so excited for your future as you will be writing the history of the district this year. And so this is how we wanted the history to be recorded. Smedley Distinguished. You can do it, Madam District Director.
Thank you very much, Alfred. And back to our Program Quality Director, Iona.
Thank you very much, Alfred, for your incredible words of advice and this wonderful workshop. You have personally been my mentor, and I know I loved the role of Club Growth Director, and I can only speak for the rest of us that we want to be Smedley Distinguished and build on our district director's dream of having 169 new clubs. Thank you today for your time. We appreciate you on behalf of District 123, and we welcome you back at any time if you want to speak to us. Thank you, Alfred.
Thank you. Thank you. It was my honor. Go do it, guys. You can do it.